Hi plant family, we are here in the greenhouse today, and this winter we want to show you something kind of fun, modern, and something that you could do at home. Maybe you have a staghorn fern in your house and you're wanting to maybe try something different. Staghorn ferns are epiphytes and they love to grow on trees in nature, and so I'm going to show you how we can take something that was growing in a pot and hang it on a wall. All right, to get started, I'm gonna go through the supplies that you're gonna need to make you successful in this project. So first of all, you're gonna start off with a healthy staghorn fern. You're gonna look for nice green leaves and a nice firm base leaf on this one. So that's something you're looking for. You need a pair of scissors, a hammer, a screwdriver, some wire or fishing line, 4 to 6 screws, a nice board, preferably cedar. I have this barn wood that we're gonna use today. And I have some wire jute. So this is some jute that's wrapped around some wire so it's nice and bendy, nice and firm. I have some sphagnum moss, and we're gonna soak this. And then I also have some Nature's Northern Moss. You'll need a bucket because it gets a little bit messy in taking the staghorn fern, and something that will hold water. So that's all you need to get this project started. Step one, we have this sphagnum moss. I'm gonna rip this bag open, take some of the moss out, and get this moss soaking while we're starting to prep the wood here. So this way the moss will be nice and moist and stick together so we're ready to go. So I'm gonna set about that much out, and I'm gonna get it nice and wet here in this bucket. Some water, and just sort of let it soak there. I'm gonna set this aside for a little bit while I'm prepping my board. To prep my board, I am going to take it, as you can see on the back of the board. Before you mount it, you want to put 2 screws in the back, and then I just took the wired jute and I wrung it around the screws, wrapped it around, and strung it on the back again. This is going to be nice and sturdy to hang. If you wanted to sit flat, you could set another one on there so that it is sitting up against your wall and the wood's not touching your wall of your home. This will just keep any moisture away from wicking against your wall when you're watering it. So putting those screws in the back, sometimes you'll put one of those little stickers, those protective stickers on the back here, just to keep it from scratching your wall too. So that's to prep the back of the board. For the front of the board, I'm just going to take some screws. I'll take the diameter of my pot and kind of measure that out of how big I want it to be. And I'll just sort of take my screwdriver, and you want it to be on the outside diameter of where you want to anchor them. So make sure you have enough room to spread out those roots of that staghorn fern. Get those screws in nice and tight in there. So we got one, and these screws, they can be just something random that you have laying around the house. As you can see, my screws don't really match. You're not gonna see them. So just something that you can find around the house. You can use a drill. I'm just using a screwdriver right now and just driving these screws into this piece of wood. All right, we have all 4 screws in here. They're ready to go. I'm gonna give them a little bit of a tug just to make sure they're in that board nice and sturdy and I don't have any loose pieces of wood. Now we're gonna take our staghorn fern out of the soil. So I have a little tray here. We're gonna pop this guy out of the pot. An important little part to this is you don't want to damage this main underside leaf here. So make sure that you're careful with that. That's kind of what's going to give it sturdiness to anchor onto your board. So we're just going to take the roots and we're going to flatten them out. So what I'm doing is I'm taking my fingers right into the bottom and I'm giving it little tugs until that root ball is flat. But take some of the soil off. We're gonna use moss instead of soil for this to be planted in. So remember, in nature, these grow on the sides of trees. So most like they're growing with a lot of air roots hanging out of them. They're getting a lot of the moisture from the water in the air, and that's coming through the leaves. So now we got this nice and flat. I'm gonna center it just in between those screws. Make sure I have enough room and I have those wide enough out. If not, you would just move them slightly bit wider than the diameter of where those roots are. Then I'm gonna take this sphagnum moss that was soaking and I'm gonna create a base. So the base is just gonna be what gives the moisture between the board and the top. Now you can also do a clump of soil. I just find that the moss helps retain a little bit more moisture and gives a little bit more sturdiness to the bottom too. So I'll just sort of pat that moss right on there, like so. Once I have that on there, I am going to take my staghorn fern and flatten him on top of that moss. So I made a little bed for him. Now, I like usually making it so that my fern will droop downwards. So it's this guy here, he's naturally kind of flopping over this way. So I'm gonna set him on so that the top is gonna hang like so. So there we go, we press him on here this way. Now, if you have florist wire, use a thin gauge florist wire, or you can use some fishing line. Either works for you. I'm just gonna set this off to the side and get it started by wrapping an edge around one of the sides here. And I'm gonna do the same for all of these. I'm just gonna get it started so that we don't have to muck around while the fern's on there. So I'm just gonna put 4 pieces of wire. Again, if you have fishing line, you would just tie the fishing line around each of these screws, like so. Now that we have the thin gauge wire, we're just gonna simply take it and go across, pulling it tight on a diagonal just to anchor it in place. Again, go across, anchored in place. We're gonna make sure we pull it nice and taut so that it's nice and sturdy. Then we're gonna take the northern moss. I love the green color. If you wanted to, you could use the sphagnum moss. I just love the natural look of this. And we're just gonna kind of tuck it around and under the wire. And again, bring another wire across the other side. Tuck some moss in and wrap it around. Grab some more moss. Tuck it in. And wrap it around. Just gonna keep going, repeating this process until you have it completely covered. And there you have it, your beautiful staghorn that is ready to grace the wall and add a little bit of inviting warmth to any room. Now, care instructions for this mounted staghorn fern is fairly easy. You want to make sure you have it in bright indirect light. So bright indirect light is preferred for these guys. And for watering, about once a week to once every 2 weeks, you actually want to take them out and soak them. That's why having a nice cedar plank is really good. If you don't, you will have to change it out as the wood becomes saturated. So I would just set it down in a bathtub or a sink, soak it for about an hour, take it out, let it drip dry. It's ready to hang back up again. And of course, misting it often. We love to use our favorite Mossify misters here at Dutch Growers. Gives it a nice fine dust, just enough that the water is evaporating within a minute. There you have it, an easy way to make this staghorn fern survive in your home all season long.